call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Jay?
Here.
Kurt?
Here.
Eric?
Eric hasn't been sworn in yet, but that should happen soon.
Thank you. Bob?
Here.
Nancy?
Yes.
Cindy? Here. And Mark?
Here. Okay, now it's time for the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that brings us to approval of minutes from the past three meetings, September 24th Assembly meeting, October 5th Assembly meeting, and the special meeting of October 8th to canvass the election. And I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for all three meetings in one vote.
So moved. Second.
Is there any changes? Everybody in favor of approving these minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved for those three meetings. Is there any amendment, or I'd entertain a motion for this evening's meeting agenda? Okay, there's one change. Go ahead, Kurt.
So moved.
Second? Okay, it's been moved by Member Walhuter, seconded by Member Lynn to approve this evening's meeting agenda. There's one change presented by the clerk. It was a, a typo. It's under new business. We all have a copy of it. The last sentence should say at a cost of $42,090, not $42,909. So we will note that and vote accordingly when we get to that. So is there any other amendments to tonight's agenda besides that? All those in favor of going with what we have here, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll stick with it with the one change. There's no public hearings. Excuse me, there's no bid awards this evening. Is there any visitors' views related to tonight's agenda in the audience? Seeing none, we'll move to item 8, and that's visitors' views unrelated to tonight's agenda. Is there any views unrelated to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to item 9, board, commission, and committee reports. There's none. Consent agenda, no items there. Report of other officers. The first item under that is the mayor's report, and we'll talk about assembly appointments. If everybody is willing to serve on the same committees that they were last year in the same positions, I would like to keep it as such, and that would be I would be the representative to Southeast Conference and Alaska Municipal League, Kurt Walhuter, the liaison to the Harbor Board, Nancy Strand, liaison to Public Safety Advisory Board. Elected official to Emergency Planning Committee is Nancy Strand. And on the Local Marijuana Regulation Advisory Committee is Jay Stanton Greger, who's the chair, Nancy Strand, and Kurt Walhuter. So, and just one other thing we need to add, I'd like to, without any objection, appoint Member Logadakis as Mayor Pro Tem again for this year. So is everybody good with that? No objections? Seeing none, that's how it will stay then. Let me catch up here. Okay, the mayor's report. We're seeking letters of interest from the borough residents willing to serve on the following boards, commissions until October 2016 municipal election. Excuse me. There's 2 vacancies on the hospital board, 2 vacant seats on the planning commission, 1 vacant seat on the public safety board. In addition, there is 1 vacant seat on the historical preservation committee. Serving as a representative to the planning commission, the appointee will serve until December 31st of 2015. And letters of interest for any of those above positions may be addressed to the borough clerk and emailed to dthompson@petersburgak.gov or mailed to Box 329, Petersburg, Alaska 99833. There is an open seat on the Northern Southeast Regional Aquaculture Association Board. It's a vacancy in the municipality seat. The NSRA board has a vacant seat there. The board will make an appointment to the seat at their next meeting on November 12th and 13th. And I understand that that appointment has to be brought forward at that meeting by one of the current local members of that board. And there's William Bergman, Mitch Eide, and Justin Peeler. So anybody interested that's involved in the municipality can submit a letter of interest to the borough clerk, and I think she could forward it on to one of those three. And I know there's a fourth one, but I can't remember the name.
I also have Mike Nilsson and Charlie McCullough written down.
There you go. Okay, so there's 5 of them. Mike Nielsen, I should have known that, the Gilnet seat. Okay, now the next item under the mayor's report is we are going to have a little discussion here on the evening assembly meeting times. The current assembly meeting schedule is set for noon for the first meeting of the month and 7 p.m. for the second meeting of the month. Is there interest among the assembly to change the evening meeting time to something earlier than 7 p.m.? So, any ideas?
Yeah, earlier the better. Noon would be fine.
Well, a little bit of history on this. This happened when we became a borough of the noon meeting so people could be here from the outlying areas. And personally, I haven't seen any influx in the participation in noon meetings. Over the years I've been here, I've seen it when there's a contentious issue, the room's full, and otherwise it's about like this. We have the reporters in the audience and staff and assembly members. So anybody want to make a motion for a time so we could have a discussion on it?
Okay, I move the meeting ahead to 4 p.m. Just for a time.
Is there a second?
For the sake of the discussion, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Member Strand, seconded by Member Walhooter to move the second meeting of every month to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Discussion? So I suppose at this point, if a person wants to change the time, we have to do it formally and make an amendment to the motion, and if we're going to do it correctly. So, but we could talk about it. We'll wait for assembly to weigh in, and then I'll say what I feel. Any comments by the assembly?
Sure, I'll go first. Definitely not in favor of 4 p.m., only just from a couple of reasons. One, selfishly, it's right at the tail end of my workday. I'd rather either be in noon, works great. I can block it off because it's consistent. Or 7 p.m. is right at the tail end anyway, so I like that. Also, I think 4 p.m. is right at the tail end of people's work days. I think you're going to have less likely to have, it's less convenient in the hopes of having more turnout for it. If I were more inclined, I would have them all at noon or keep noon and 7. Actually, I really like the all at noon one, but in short, I'm not really in favor of the 4 o'clock one, to keep it on topic of the motion.
Okay. Yeah, I still have the. Does anybody else have a comment, Bob?
Yeah, I'm going to come at it from a different aspect. I agree with what Jay says from the standpoint of not holding it at 4 p.m. But if one of the things that was talked about, when we formed a borough, was that would provide people outside would have an opportunity to run and to participate. And I'll tell you, having now been here for 2 years, it's a 2-day. In the evening meetings, it's a 2-day. I've got to commit to it. I'm not arguing for or against, but I'm just saying that's what it takes, because of the weather and so forth. In the summertime, it's fine. But I do say that having been here now, is I do think, at least in the wintertime, one of the meetings has to be in the evening sometime. I'm not arguing when. I'm just saying I really do believe it needs to be in the evening. In the summertime, I think that's a whole different deal. I think they could all be at noon, at least 6 months or 7 months of the year. With the interest I saw now over the last 2 years and what we did. So that's what I have to say there.
And I guess every new assembly as it gets seated can change just as much as they want, and I kind of like to see continuity, but like I said, if people are interested and they're paying attention, they'll come to a meeting if there's a topic that they want to discuss. So, Cindy, you were going to say something?
The only thing I was going to say is I have heard from at least one person that they prefer the evening meetings, that they can't even listen to the meeting in the middle of the day, nor can they attend. So there's that feedback. And I could put Joe Vichnicki on the spot. I know it would affect KFSK's programming, and I don't know how flexible they are with their feeds as far as, if we moved it ahead to 6:30, that currently I think is the beginning of the next show in the evening, but you're shrugging your shoulders like it doesn't matter, so I guess...
Pretty flexible.
Okay, okay, that's good to know.
My feeling is if we're going to move it to earlier in the evenings, it should be no earlier than 6, so it gives people an hour after a normal work day to go change clothes or have a meal, and people that are involved in this board that work, 4 would cut an hour off their work day, and there's enough time forfeited during work time for these positions. So I guess if somebody wants to make a motion to change the 4 o'clock time as presented, we need that. If not, we'll vote for the 4 o'clock time, and if it passes, it passes. If it fails, we'll have to come up with another time. A couple different ways to skin that cat, I guess.
Well, frankly, I don't see any difference between a nighttime time of 6 and I could go 5. I agree with you that they should all be either at noon but I'd go 5, as late as 5. And as far as people talking about listening to it on the radio, I get more positive feedback about being able to listen at noon than at night.
So I guess currently at this time we have a motion on the floor to change the evening meeting, second meeting of the month, to 4 o'clock. Is there an amendment to that motion, or are we going to vote on 4?
Should be an amendment. I mean, I only seconded it just simply so that we could just put it out here for discussion, but I don't think 4 o'clock would work for
And it probably
most
doesn't,
people anyway. But so maybe I'd make an amendment to 6 o'clock, maybe an hour earlier.
Is there a second to the main motion to move the second meeting time of the month to 6 o'clock p.m. instead of 4?
I'll second it because 6 is better than 7, but 5 would be even better.
Yeah, well, I agree. I'm really flexible in the wintertime, so it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter when it is for me. I mean, I could make any time, but I'm just thinking about the general public, though. What would work best for those that would really like to attend? And
Well, they don't seem to like 7.
yeah, that's true. So maybe an extra hour earlier might do it for them.
Any more discussion on the amendment to the main motion? This will be to vote for the 6 o'clock time. Okay, clerk, call the roll.
Nancy,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jay.
Yep. Yes.
Yep. So I guess we've just voted to have the evening meeting at 6 p.m., the second meeting of the month. Okay, so back to the mayor's report. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, well, one comment on your report there about the Northern Southeast Regional Aquaculture Association. I called the president today, Kevin McDougall, and asked him what the criteria was, because there seems to be some interest, from other people around the community, and he said as long as you're an elected official, it doesn't matter if you were involved in the fisheries, unless it came to a conflict of interest, and then you'd have to abstain from voting. So it could be me, or it could be the 2 other people that have expressed interest. So it's just as long as it's somebody that's
Okay.
either an employee or an elected official. So
Okay, great. Good
Yep.
to have the
Yep.
information. Thanks for looking into that.
Yep.
So I guess whoever's interested needs to submit a letter to the borough clerk, and we could forward it from there.
Okay.
And when did I get this letter? I got something I added to the report on the 17th. I received a letter from Brian Lynch, and he was talking about a meeting they just had with the Salmon Beyond Borders legal subgroup, and they're kind of hoping that we would write a letter to the lieutenant governor encouraging him to take a position on this transboundary river issue. Senator Murkowski's office is willing, it sounds like, to present it to Secretary Kerry to try to get the International Joint Commission to meet and to discuss this trans-boundary river issue. So I would like to, with the borough clerk, and maybe involve Brian Lynch, and I could edit it and make, unless the assembly wants to see it before we send it off. It's kind of time sensitive. It'd be nice to get this letter going. It'd be nice to have the governor, lieutenant governor, take a position on this well before the end of the year, before the election, so they could, the state actually takes a position on it. We drafted a resolution in October of 20th of 2014 in support of this, and we have got no response. And maybe we could get other municipalities to do the same and encourage the lieutenant governor, since the governor put him in a position to deal with this issue, to take a position. Maybe we could CC the letter to the governor and Murkowski's office as well. So is it all right with the assembly to proceed with this letter?
Yes. A question.
Bob?
Do you know where Wrangell's at on the same issue? now?
Pardon me?
Do you know where Wrangell's at right now on the same
They've
issue?
basically drafted a resolution the same. The Conference of Mayors has, Southeast Conference has, Alaska Municipal League, I believe, has. So Debbie was going to look into it a little bit and see which municipalities have actually
Senate.
taken a formal stance, formal position on it. So, and we could maybe include that in the letter. And then maybe we'll get a response from Lieutenant Governor Malott to see, what he's thinking. 'Cause I think it's important. It sounds like from some of the information I've been getting, the people in Canada are even leaning less towards mining unless they have more oversight.
Yes.
So I think it's a topic we need to stay on top of.
Do we need a motion, Mark, or we're?
No, I'm just looking for permission, I think, we've already taken action on it, I think, so I think just send another letter.
the letter.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And I believe that is it for the mayor's report. Did I miss any appointments? I don't think I did. Just we got all the vacancies and everything. So next, it is the manager's report, and Mr. Hagerman is going to do that for Steve tonight.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to step in for Steve tonight and read his report into the record. So, in the Power and Light Department, the underground cable connecting the Blind Slough hydro plant to our distribution system failed recently, and that portion of the plant from the hatchery had to be replaced. Also, right-of-way clearing was delayed somewhat by the bad weather. Power and Light intends to do Wrangell Avenue and a section of line near the trees this week if the weather cooperates. I don't know if it's cooperating tonight, but
It's done.
great. In the Harbor Department, the float for the Middle Harbor repairs is in transit via AML to Petersburg and Tamco. What's that?
It's actually here.
It's here.
Yes,
It's in Petersburg, and Tamco is scheduling for the installation
we
soon.
installed it.
And it's in. It's
Yeah.
installed.
Yeah.
Great. This report is just reading itself. The harbor continues to remind people to give them a call so they can keep an eye on your boat when owners leave town. It is also important for folks to check their skiffs during our very wet weather. Harbor Board meeting is scheduled for October 21st at noon in the Assembly Chambers. P&D is on the agenda to discuss the drive-down bulkhead design. In Public Works, the Public Works crew recently removed the broken sidewalk panels from the 100 block of Fram Street and replaced the failed concrete with crushed rock. This will provide a safer walking surface for the public while further plans for the sidewalk replacement are considered. Also, additional investigation into the condition of the ductile iron water main in the Crane Dock parking lot and Singley Alley South showed that the pipe is in good condition under the street. Great news for us. Public Works will start to put a project together to replace the water main in the Crane Dock parking lot. The goal will be to replace the ductile iron with HDPE in order to avoid corrosion issues in the future. As many people may have heard last week, as of November 1st, the commingled recycling program will no longer accept glass. After this date, the Sanitation Department encourages the community to separate glass and drop it off at Public Works, where a dumpster has already been set up for this purpose. Glass may also be placed into a customer's garbage containers. This change is being implemented in order to maintain adequate recycling commodity rebate values and solidify the long-term success of the recycling program overall. An update to the commingled recycling transition to carts will be coming out soon. It appears the truck will be completed in late November and will likely arrive in Petersburg in December. This pushes the transition of carts later into the new year and probably in the mid-January 2016. More information will be sent out to the community as the schedules become clearer. And thanks to our customers for your patience. It's been a long time coming. The motor pool, the Power and Light Mechanic Flatbed is the last budgeted unit awaiting an award from the Assembly. This unit will reuse the existing small crane on the mechanic's old truck and is under budget by a fairly wide margin. Also in motor pool, we're working with finance and the police department to add a second police SUV purchase to this fiscal year as a supplemental item, pending Assembly approval, of course. This would replace the second Dodge Charger patrol unit in the fleet. This sedan is scheduled for replacement evaluation next year, but current high mileage and high maintenance costs are prompting the department to recommend replacement now. This unit has already been extended by 2 years past its projected life cycle, and its reliability is not where it should be for a public safety patrol and response vehicle. We recently had in the motor pool, excuse me, an NC machinery mechanic come to town to perform some recall work on the motor grader. It was a very quick fix. A hydraulic pressure sensor was replaced at no cost to the borough. Public Works and the Mountain View Manor are working together to improve safety for the Manor residents crossing Howcan Street to and from Hammer and Weekon Grocery Store. Solar-powered LED crosswalk signs with push-button actuators have been ordered and will dramatically improve motorist awareness of pedestrians in the crosswalk once they are installed. This proactive solution comes on the heels of another close call with traffic for one of the Manor residents in the crosswalk. Seacon's concrete crew will be shutting down sidewalk work, actually already has shut down sidewalk work and has mobilized out of town. They will be back in hopefully mid-March to commence work once again. In finance, a week ago Friday, the finance department was no longer able to access the sales tax program. PCS is working on getting us the latest backup. We also lost the computer in the office that prints sales tax cards and ID cards. We believe it had to do with the power outage. We also saw some disruption in service at the library. Thanks to our IT vendor for helping us get everything back up and running. Jody is working with GovCollect to get property taxes and sales tax in their new tax software database. It is great to have the new crosswalks across Haugen for the library, but we need folks walking and driving to recognize the change, especially as it gets darker out. One addition to that item from Steve's report is that the ultimate plan for those crosswalks, there will be flashing signals during school hours for those, but they will not go in until the spring. So again, really important for motorists to be aware of people in the crosswalks on Haugen. The library hosted their first STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math program. This is funded by the Petersburg Community Foundation and the Institute for Museum and Library Services. In community development, Liz is working with school district to bring GED testing back to Petersburg. The school district is seeking a part-time GED tutor, and we're trying to find space that matches the testing agency requirements. For more info, you can go to www.serrc.org. And the last item is several assembly members and the borough manager attended the hospital board meeting recently to hear a report from Jensen Yorba Lot regarding a facility condition survey of the hospital facilities. There were numerous concerns mentioned by the architect and engineers regarding the building and infrastructure, including mechanical systems, ventilation, electrical systems, ADA issues, telephone and network cabling. Total estimated construction cost to replace the facility is $33 million. Not including design, contingencies, and furniture and fixtures. The architect and engineers expressed concern regarding several of the infrastructure items and cautioned the hospital board that failures in these areas could happen unexpectedly and cause building-wide issues. The hospital board continues to discuss the possible solutions for the facility and is hoping to involve the assembly in discussions at the appropriate time. That concludes the manager's report. If there are any questions, maybe the staff can answer.
Any questions of Carl about the manager's report he just presented? Seeing none, thank you, Carl. I'd like to add one thing. We have a meeting Monday morning, the 26th, at 9 a.m. as the assembly for a hearing and appeal. So just a reminder of that. It was on my list, but I didn't see it till after Carl got started. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, unfinished business. There's no items under that section. The next thing on the agenda is new business, and a couple items under new business. The first one is ordinance 2015-14, an ordinance amending the official zoning map for Service Area 1 of the Petersburg Borough, and it's to rezone a portion of green belt of the Airport Addition subdivision from open space to commercial 1. I'd entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its first reading.
I so move.
Second.
Moved by Member Logadakis, seconded by Member Walhooter to adopt ordinance 2015-14 in its first reading. Any discussion? Just for clarification to people that are listening out on the radio, this is a section of land on the airport side of the entrance to the Hammer and Weekon store up towards the airport, and it's right along the highway, and it's want to rezone it to commercial, and it sounds like there's a business interested in possibly obtaining one of those pieces of land. That'll be in the future. So any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Jay,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2015-14 passes 6-0. The next item on the agenda is authorization to purchase an electric department F-350 flatbed for the amount not to exceed $42,909. Is that the one I'm supposed to?
090.
Oh, 090. See, I even talked about earlier. Yeah, not to exceed $42,090. Entertain a motion to authorize that.
So,
Yeah, well, it should, 36,914, that's right. So what do you, our note is
I so move.
last sentence. Okay, I get it. Yeah, that was the original estimated bid. So we're voting on authorizing $36,914.52. Still make a motion in that, Nancy?
Yes.
Is there a second?
second.
Okay, moved by Member Strand, seconded by Member Lynn to authorize this purchase. Any discussion? Chris, would you like to explain what the vehicle's going to be used for?
This is the electrician's service vehicle. So it's what he uses to get around back and forth to the hydro and other places where he needs to service equipment. If I've missed anything here, Joe, maybe you could.
Mechanics, not electricians.
Mechanics, okay.
Okay, so we're all stumbling over this one for some
Yeah.
reason, even after reading it a couple times. But it was actually in the fiscal year 2016 motor pool budget to spend $42,090. So it came in $6,000 roughly under at $36,914.52. So that's a good thing. Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Jay,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the authorization to purchase that vehicle has been approved. No items under communications unless somebody has something to add at this point. Okay, assembly discussion items. Any recognitions? Jay?
I'd like to recognize Carl Hagerman and his work crew for going out on a very rainy, snotty Sunday up on Joa Street. I was walking by a couple times and it looked like you guys had your hands full. So thanks for your effort on Alaska Day there. It was a rough-looking day out there.
Thank you, but the crew needs to be recognized for sure. That was a really big water break, and it took about 6 hours to get through. We thought we had it fixed at one time, and we found another leak just a little ways up the pipe, so we had to dig some more and get it out. They did a great job. Ron Ware, Sam Collin, Martin Odegaard, and Blake Biot were there and did fantastic. So kudos to them.
Thank
Great.
you.
Any other recognitions? Okay, any from staff? Nope, don't see any hands going up. Okay, Mr. Lynn wanted to have a couple of items here under discussion, and One of them was the municipal building plan update, and Chief Kelly Swihart has a quick report for us, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
Got a memo today from the architect. The design team has come up with what they're calling a rough set of 95% documents. The project is about 95% design. Most systems determined and overall engineering and design has been completed. They were scheduled to send that document to the estimators today. I did not get confirmation that it actually got sent, but the plan was to send those to the estimators today. The estimation, cost estimation, should take about 2.5 weeks to complete. During that time, they were going to finalize their 95% documents. The hope is for the architect to meet with the assembly in November to present the information and review any documents with the assembly and interested parties, and then make the request for approval to move forward. Anticipated bid process is going to take about 4 to 5 weeks, and construction is still looking at about 18 months to complete. We got some rough figures a few weeks ago from the architect, and it looks like some systems are coming in lower than we expected. Some are a little higher, so the overall cost is about the same right now. We should know more, or we will know more, when the final estimation gets here in the next couple weeks.
Okay, great. Thanks for the news. Any questions of the chief?
Yeah, a couple questions. The thinking is now, I have to go back to the question that John Haverlick asked, which we never answered. One is that when the architect reviewed the plans again, did they look at doing it in stages at all, or is it all or none?
Well, there are 2 phases. I don't think that the phases were designed around what Mr. Haverlick was looking at. I think that they're thinking that they need to have it completed from start to finish. The 2 phases it's broken down into right now is the initial renovation from the interior PD wall forward this way, and then after that phase is done, the main body of the police department, the new administrative part of the building, we would move over, and then they would begin demolition and renovation of our current space to turn that into the Sally Port and storage. So there's a defined line there, but the recommendation is to still carry the project all the way through.
And then the second question part of that, the way it's proposed for phasing, will that help you out with some of the problems you're currently facing down there and with your jails and so forth, or does that not help us very much?
I'm not sure I follow what you're asking.
What I'm asking is, you have some problems right now with the jails and with the water systems and so on and so forth that you have down there that you've discussed with me about.
Right.
Will that help you? Will this in any way, the phasing, help you or hurt you, or where does it leave you?
Well, I think it will help. It's going to give us a safer environment, a more efficient environment to do business inside the building. There will be some additional challenges before that second phase is completed, because we're going to have to figure out a way to safely get those prisoners in and out of the building without having that Sally Port there. So there's going to be some parking challenges if we can't access the building from that end. With employees and prisoners or inmates as we process them in and out, take them to court and things like that. So, on one hand, it's going to be a lot better, but we're going to have to make some compromises until it's finished.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any other questions of the chief on the building plan update? Okay, that brings us to another topic that Assemblymember Lynn wanted to talk about. That's baseline water monitoring on the Stikine River.
Yeah, one of the, this goes along with the transboundary issue that we're talking about. Is one of the things we talked about earlier was that we have a mine on the other side already going into production on up the Stikine off the Iskut. Right now, to my knowledge and to a lot of other people, there is no baseline monitoring ever has been done on the Stikine at the bottom that would hold water, so to speak, in a court of law. And many of you know that when you get those mines, you've got arsenic and copper and all other minerals, but we've never tested. The lower part of the Stickeen's never been tested for those kind of things, so you don't have a baseline. If in fact you had a mine breach, or you had a leakage, or you had something else occur right now, even if you went and tested, you have no basis of which to change. And my only thought here is, as Cindy and yourself go into, the discussions, we need, I believe, to have some baseline monitoring take place. If you look back at the Stickeen Treaty, which I'm not expert on, the more I learn, the less I know, but it's replete with habitat, with allocations, but nothing in terms of water quality monitor, nothing in terms of baseline. And even with all the money that the federal government has put into it, again, it can go to habitat and it go to some of the other things, but there's nothing really that I know of in there for baseline. And if you look at a couple of the other ones, if you look at the Pacific Halibut Commission and so forth, I don't think there's anything in there that you could push towards any kind of baseline monitoring, which I think we need to have. Anyhow, my thought process is that really needs to be done regardless of where we go. I like the idea of proceeding the way you're going, but regardless, I think we need some kind of baseline monitoring for southeast here along all those rivers, whether it be the Stickeen or the Taku or any of those that are going to be affected.
Yeah,
and that's my thought. And you can add to anything I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I remember doing this resolution. I was sure we'd done that, and I'm almost sure that we've written a letter asking for someone to do a baseline study on the rivers. Can you recollect any of that, Cindy, or any of your discussions with this
Salmon Beyond Borders?
Salmon Beyond Borders group?
The conversation that I had with Heather, my recollection is that although everybody wants baseline, it's expensive, and the state hasn't been able to afford to do it. I think it's something that we can put in our letter, though, to ask the IJC to come up with a mechanism for funding that just, at the outset, so we know where we're starting from.
Yeah. I also think that we could go back on looking at the salmon treaty and so forth, and the money the federal government's been putting into it. There's another alternative funding source there I think we need to pursue. It might be hard to do, but I really think we need to try it out in one way or another.
Well, this subject should be brought up in our letter to Lieutenant Governor Balot, I think, and
Completely agree.
we could CC Heather Hardcastle on it. And Cindy, you have any other suggestions?
No, but other than when we were at the meeting that the Lieutenant Governor convened in Juneau, the first meeting before Bill Bennett came, there was talk of the tribal group doing baseline monitoring. I don't know, however, if the Stickeen was part of that or if it was just on the Taku.
Okay, I thought I remembered, maybe that's the conversation I was recalling, but that needs to be brought up by us as well, so we will add that in. Thanks a lot,
I'd
Kurt.
get to one step further, and I would put the onus on the mining companies to come up with the funding to do that. If they're so certain that they can keep the rivers clean, without any pollutant, I would think that in good faith they'd want to do that for us. At least give us the baseline.
I love your optimism.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
You have to have.
Agreed, by the way.
Yeah, I'd go that way.
Okay, well, that could be thrown in there. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have something
Yep.
to start, someplace
Right.
to start from. If you don't have any quality records, then you're kind of
You have no basis of which to argue
yeah.
from.
Yep.
no reason to argue. Any other discussion on that? And we will add that into the letter. You making notes, I hope, Debbie? And,
I am.
Yeah, okay. And I intend to ask for Brian Lynch's help on drafting this letter. And then
Wonderful.
And he was in today, and I'm sure he's probably listening. So, Brian, you'll get a phone call.
Yeah. And I had that question also for Brian, which I hadn't talked to him, but
Right.
whether or not we could find another federal source to which to fund that kind of a baseline study.
He's got a lot of energy. He can look into it for us. So, if there's no other recognitions or discussion items to talk about, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.